At the end of my videos, I love to promote my own book, The Super Wheel Option Strategy, which is available on Amazon. And I've gotten some viewers ask me, hey, could you recommend other books? I've purchased your book, DT, and it's great, especially for new options traders. But what else should I be reading? And I think this is a great question. So today, what I wanted to do, I wanted to cover 5 books that I think every trader should have on their bookshelf. Everyone should read these books, especially if you're a novice to trading or to investing or just to general finance. I think a great first book to start with would be The Boglehead's Guide to Investing. I love this book. This book is written by Mel Lindauer, Taylor Larimore, and Michael LaBouffe, and The Boglehead's Guide to Investing is all about the investment advice of John C. Bogle. John Bogle is the guy that founded the Vanguard Group. He's also the guy that popularized the idea of the index fund. This book is a very quick and easy read. It's only about 250 pages, and it's not terribly technical in the way it's written, right? It's written for the layman, and it's basically about how you can start saving your money, putting it away in an index fund, and through the magic of compound interest, you can turn a very small amount of money into a very large amount of money in 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, however much time you have to save and invest. And with John Bogle, again, he's the guy that founded Vanguard and started many of the popular index funds that people invest in nowadays. And the idea is that you cannot pick stocks and outperform the market. 99% of the people that are active traders, you're trying to pick which stocks are going to outperform the overall market, and you can't do that reliably because of, markets are random, which we'll get into in a minute why John Bogle, somebody else influenced John Bogle quite a bit. And then I'm going to recommend another book in a minute and you'll see why. But, the idea is you can't go and pick stocks and reliably and consistently year after year, decade after decade outperform the market. Instead, you should be putting all your money into a low-cost index fund. Index funds also are safer than individual stocks because they are a large basket of hundreds, if not thousands, of companies, right? So it has diversification, right? It's diversified. It's much safer. It's a much safer place for you to put your money than individual stocks. One of the key points that John Bogle stressed over his life, and John Bogle, by the way, he lived into his 90s. He just died a couple of years ago. He passed away, but you can find many books and articles written by him, books and articles written about him. You can find a lot of YouTube videos. He was a guy that was very active in public speaking, so you can find a lot of John Bogle out there on the internet, but he really railed against financial advisors. The whole idea that you as an investor need to go pay somebody for advice when that person knows nothing more than you know about the market, because again, the markets are random. So what is this advisor going to recommend to you? Do they have some kind of special knowledge and information that you don't have? According to John Bogle, no, that they have no more of an advantage than you do. All you need to do to outperform this financial advisor is go sink your money into an index fund, such as one of the products available through Vanguard. Just go put your money in a total market index fund, and you're going to outperform 99% of the people out there that are trying to actively trade. I think a natural progression after you've read The Boglehead's Guide to Investing, the next book you should read is A Random Walk Down Wall Street by Burton Malkiel. Now, this book, this is one of the most important books ever written about trading and investing and just general finance. A Random Walk Down Wall Street essentially states that markets are random. You can't predict anything, right? You cannot predict anything through technical analysis. Technical analysis is all BS. You can't predict anything with fundamental analysis. That's all BS. You cannot predict whether the next candlestick on a stock chart is going to be a green candle or a red candle. You can't predict that. Now, a little bit of background on Burton Malkiel. He is a professor at Princeton University, but before that, he spent a long time working for the Vanguard Group. And of course, the Vanguard Group was founded by John Bogle, who we've already talked about. John Bogle, why does he say that you can't beat the market? You can't accurately and reliably predict stocks that are going to go up in price, that you should put all your money into an index fund? Is because John Bogle was heavily inspired by Burton Malkiel, right? He he believes in the random walk hypothesis. Now, this particular book, even though it's kind of a big book, right? It's got some size to it. It's an easy read. It's not terribly technical. It's not something that's just going to require a lot of effort on your part to understand. A lot of it is a history lesson. We're talking about all of the market bubbles throughout history going back centuries, and tulip mania back in Holland, centuries ago, all the way until more recent things like the dot-com burst and the great financial recession, the COVID crash, and things like that. He covers modern topics like some of the bubbles with cryptocurrency, but a lot of this is basically built on that nobody has ever been able to accurately and reliably predict things as far as stock market performance. Much of this book is dedicated to debunking technical analysis. Technical analysis doesn't work. There have been many studies on it. Technical analysis, chart patterns and candlestick patterns and things like that have no bearing on what the next candlestick is going to be. Technical indicators don't work. A lot of this book also spends time debunking fundamental analysis. There's a lot of discussion about risk management. There's a lot of discussion about how the financial industry as a whole really doesn't know any more than just your average Joe. There's also some talk about, for example, investing in index funds as a safer way to invest your money. Of course, again, he worked at the Vanguard group for a while, so it makes sense for some of that kind of talk to be in this book. But again, I think these two books, the Boglehead's Guide to Investing and A Random Walk Down Wall Street, once you read these books, you will never look at traders on YouTube the same way again, because you will realize 99% of the videos you see on YouTube that are about trading and investing are complete and total BS. Book number 3. Now let's get into something that is really option trading specific. Let's talk about Options as a Strategic Investment by Lawrence McMillan. This is the Bible on options trading, and this book is very, very, very large. It's a textbook, like literally it's a textbook, right? It's a huge book, but again, it's one of the seminal works on options trading. And because it's kind of a textbook, it's more of a reference kind of book where you can look up a variety of strategies about options or some of the basics, such as the Greeks, for example. If you're not sure exactly what delta is or theta is, things like that, you can go to the book and look it up. Now, because of the size of this book and the fact that it's more of a reference kind of work, it's probably not something you're just going to sit down and read from front to back, in a single sitting, especially in a single day. It's too large. It'd take you several days to actually read it from front to back. If you want to, it's fine. It's actually not a terribly technical book, so it is kind of easy reading, but again, it's more of a reference kind of book. It covers a bunch of different option strategies, from single leg strategies to multi-leg strategies, such as vertical spreads, credit spreads, debit spreads, things like that. It also focuses a lot on risk management, which I think is one of the most important parts of trading. Matter of fact, every book I talk about today is actually risk management is a main focus, man. That's really how you separate people that are actually knowledgeable about trading and investing. Do they actually talk about risk? Because risk is actually what makes somebody profitable. It's not about trading. It's not about investing. It's not about strategy. It's not about the things you do to make money. It's the things you do to reduce your risk of losing money. This book also talks about things like volatility. It talks about tax implications, especially for those of you that are combining options with a large portfolio of stock, for example. So again, this is one of those works. If you're an options trader, especially, you should definitely have a copy of this book on hand. The fourth book I want to recommend may seem like a strange choice, especially as I describe it, but this book is called The Tao of Trading by Simon Rhee. Simon Rhee, he was a financial professional. I believe he worked as an investment banker. He worked at a bank in some capacity. And being in the industry, he really rails against the financial industry in this book. He really rails against financial advisors, most banks, the investment advisors. These guys don't have your best interest at heart. Whatever it is that they're advising you to do, whatever they're trying to get you to sink investing your money into, they typically are not advising you based on, is this the right investment plan for you? They're giving you this advice based on, is it good for the bank, right? And again, he worked in the industry, and he basically says that you're better off trying to take control of your own investment future, right? And don't go and pay a professional for advice on this stuff. Now, why I said this might seem like a strange recommendation for me is because this book also does talk about technical analysis in a positive way. He really gives some credence to technical analysis, as far as he loves moving averages. He loves looking at stock charts with a lot of moving averages on them, and based on the moving averages, is the stock in a trend or is it not in a trend? If it's in a trend, do you trade with the trend or do you trade against the trend? But honestly, I don't think his use of technical analysis is that different than me not using technical analysis, because he's looking at moving averages and trying to determine if a stock is in a trend. I can determine if a stock is in a trend just looking at the candlesticks. I don't need a bunch of moving averages on it. So the fact that he adds those moving averages to his chart, I don't think it really helps him. I don't think it necessarily hurts me. I've said before, I think technical analysis really doesn't help you. It also really doesn't hurt you. So, I'm not too concerned with that. He also talks about buying options as a strategy. So instead of, buying or selling stock to get long or short, he talks about buying and selling calls and puts, which are not my favorite option strategy. But again, this is not an options book, by the way. This is more of a general trading and investment kind of book. So he's not really trying to give you the best advice. It's not a smorgasbord of option strategy. The fact that he's using options in this book, I think it's more of just happenstance, right? He could have written this book trading stocks rather than options, but mainly he's talking about how to look at charts and to come up with some kind of an opinion on what's going on and then trade based on that. And the fifth book I want to recommend is Trade Options with an Edge by Dr. Russell Richards. Now, this book, I don't know if it's a terribly popular book or not. Like the other books that I've mentioned, they're very popular trading and investment books that you've probably heard of. Unless you're specifically wanting to learn more about options trading, and especially options trading as far as being an options seller and using mainly TASTYTRADE mechanics, right? And that's kind of what this book is. This particular author, Dr. Richards, he is a big fan of TASTYTRADE and their content, and he is basically a disciple of their philosophy. And this book, I think, is the best book on covering and explaining, especially in layman terms that anybody can understand, the TASTYTRADE mechanics. This book covers a lot of the basics, such as what an options contract is. It covers a lot of the basic option strategies, everything from single leg strategies to spreads, vertical spreads, iron condors, strangles, straddles, butterflies. This book covers the Greeks, delta, gamma, theta, vega. It talks about the importance of liquidity, the importance of implied volatility, how implied volatility affects options prices, yada, yada, yada. Again, it's a lot of the TASTYTRADE material, but it's in a very well-written book. This book is about 300 pages. It's very well organized. It's just really quite a brilliant book. And again, I don't know how popular this particular book is. I don't know. It's probably not like some New York Times bestseller, but it's one of the best books on options trading that I have found. So there you have it. 5 books that I recommend every trader and investor have on their bookshelf. Only 2 of these books really are focused on options trading. The other 3 books are really focused on just general trading and investment advice. Really, one of the books, The Random Walk Down Wall Street, is more about how markets work than anything else. But I think all 5 of these books, even though they cover different topics as a whole, I think they will give you the best worldview of how trading actually works. Now, if you want to purchase these books, what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw some Amazon affiliate links in the description below. You'll find links to all 5 of these books. So go ahead, check them out. Again, these are books that I have found personally enriching, so hopefully you guys find the value in these books that I have. Peace, guys.